Hello and welcome back to the OnlyAccies preview show. We're joined this week by AJ Aaron McGowan, obviously former Accies and Killie player now down at Northampton. Aaron, how you doing, man? You all right?
All good, lads. All good. How are we?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. Nervous, excited for the weekend. Who knows, man, with the way we're going at the moment.
I can imagine, yeah.
I mean, just to start with, obviously your time at Accies. I mean, how did that move come around? You were young player of the year at Morecambe. There was links with a few other Scottish clubs, Aberdeen and Hibs, I think, were thrown in the papers. So, how did the move to Accies come around?
I got a phone call off my agent. Basically, I was under obviously when I was in England, obviously I had a good season, I'd done well, got whatever. And I remember thinking not that I've outgrown Morecambe, but I remember thinking right, I want to kick on now. Do you know what I mean? We were actually fighting relegation in League Two at the time, and we stayed up on the last day. And I just remember thinking they offered me a new deal and all that, but I thought I want to kick on my career now. I was 21. I played 120 games for them by then, and I thought I'm ready for something now. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to be at a club for 7-8 years and become stale. Especially different if obviously you're challenging for stuff and that, but when it's for relegation and if you go down, it was for the conference. Do you know what I mean? I've got to move on to better my career. And I remember, so I think there was a lot of clubs in England, and I remember my agent. There was a day where it kind of changed. Where obviously I don't know if you're aware of the compensation down south. I made my debut when I was 16. All Morecambe have to do to get compensation for you because you've been a youth player was to offer you the same money. So basically what happens then is if they offer you the same money or better your contract and you go, just say for example at Preston, they're due compensation of Preston. It just protects lower league clubs from losing players for nothing, which is more than fair enough. The problem I had was because I played so many appearances, this compensation goes by training fees. So it's how many training sessions you've done, how long you've been at the club. And my compensation was ended up being really high. Mm. And my agent was just, I always deal in honesty, do you know what I mean? And my agent was with me. I think the next step for me was, League One, in all honesty. And I think I remember my agent just saying to me, I don't think people are going to pay that money. And so I was well, what are we going to do? And he was well, I've got something up my sleeve. My agent it was my old agent, a Scouts lad, and he said to me, well, I've just done Jordan Roster to Rangers. To get compensation off the English club, it has to be by a certain deadline. So what happens, well, what doesn't happen no more, but what happened 2 or 3 years ago was most people forget about Scottish clubs. Because to get compensation off a Scottish club, you had to offer it a month before the deadline. So basically what you find is everyone who's out of contract, before this deadline, they'll offer you a deal a week before. So just so they're all right for the compensation. But even Liverpool forgot about Scotland, for example, do you know what I mean? So what happened then was it opened an avenue for me to go on a free to Scotland. And I remember the phone call, and it was he just said to me, you'll laugh at the actual clubs because I don't think you'll like them. It was Hamilton, Motherwell, Dundee, Aberdeen. And I remember I was a kid, I thought Aberdeen's too far. I looked at Dundee, I actually thought, for my first time living away, do you know what I mean? That's 4.5, 5 hours from Liverpool. I was no way. So it ended up being Motherwell or Hamilton. I swear to God, it's no lie. It ended up being Motherwell or Hamilton. So I looked at the two clubs, I spoke to the two managers, and I thought, I came from, I'm always from that wants to play games. I'm not bothered about anything else than playing games. When I was a kid, I could have went to them under 23s. I don't think they're good. In honesty, I don't think they progress your career. I was 21. And basically, I spoke to Martin Cannon, and basically, you were coming in to play. You were number 2. You're going to be number 2. You're going to be my right back going forward. You're going to come in and play. Obviously, Motherwell, I think at the time, I'd if you remember, obviously, St Mirren Tatey. I've actually ended up being all right, a good mate with Tatey. But so I looked at that and thought, that's not a guarantee, but it's going to be much harder when I'm getting told this. I'd just rather go and play games, you know what I mean? So Hamilton, to be fair, gave me that platform and that comfort blanket straight away of we've monitored you, we've done this. Spoke with Martin Cannon, and to be fair, Martin Cannon, he's a top fella, man. I spoke to him, And I remember I went out with my girlfriend to obviously, I knew they were in a massive club, do you know what I mean? But it was about going to Scotland, experience it, playing games, I ended up loving it, you know. And I remember my first day I ever went to Scotland with my girlfriend, and I remember it quickly changed. I remember the club put me up in the Blythewood Square Hotel. So I'm thinking, well, this club's got a bit of money, haven't they? Do you know what I mean?
That's a office swanky hotel, isn't it?
I know, they sold me a dream. So I remember I met with Alan Maitland. I don't think he was chairman at that time. I think he was vice chairman maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I think Ronnie was the chairman at that time. And I just remember from the off, I just felt like, well, this is all right, do you know what I mean? And normally when you go and sign for a club, it's common, you don't really meet a vice chairman or a chairman. And I met Alan Maitland straight away, and he was like, look, I'll help you get settled, I'll help your missus find this, find that. And I just thought, like, this club's proper, do you know what I mean? To be fair, like, I've got not one bad word to say about them, do you know what I mean? Like, honestly. And that was just the start, really. And obviously, I don't know what you think, I hope we've done well for you, but I couldn't speak highly enough of my time there.
I mean, fans will be over the moon to hear you picked us over Motherwell, so that was...
Yeah. And Dundee as well, that was the
other.
And Dundee, of course.
being from England, and obviously in England, the Scottish League gets disrespected 100%, and I didn't know much about the Scottish League, and I didn't even know Motherwell Hamilton was that much of a derby, or I didn't know. Obviously, it was until we played Dundee at Dens Park and we sent them down. was only when I knew that you don't like Dundee as well, that sort of thing. So I was like, I'll dodge the bullet there.
Absolutely. And so when you were moving up from England to Scotland, did you see any kind of massive changes in the difference in the football, difference in the training, difference in the environment, the atmosphere?
The obvious one is, if I was to change something about the Scottish League, I'd get more teams in it. I think like I'm sitting here now, obviously when you come up you think Celtic, Rangers, but I'm sitting here now and I've played against Rangers and Celtic 20 times. Now I've played against Aberdeen 10 times, I've played against Motherwell 10 times. The problem about Scotland for me is it just gets repetitive. I just think you've got Partick, obviously in the Championship now you've got Hamilton, Partick, Kilmarnock, good clubs, you know what I mean? And just think that, like, even if you just make it into 16, I just think, and play each other 3 times, I just think that's a better pathway. I just think in the it's all right in your first year, but year 2, year 3, year 4, you think you literally know what you're going to play against. Whereas down south, because there's 24 teams in each league, you don't see them again for 4 months. You get me? And it's obviously better for fans because fans have different away days and stuff like that. And the training, to be honest with you, the training is the same everywhere. Every club you go at, training is just small-sided, possession, boxes, shape, set pieces. But the actual games, that was the only. I love my time in Scotland. I couldn't speak highly enough. Whenever someone asks me about going up there, I say go up there straight away. Do you know what I mean? But the one thing I think they could do to change it to make it better is the size of the league. When I think personally they can just make it into 3 leagues somehow. Mm-hmm. Whereas in England you've got 4 leagues of 24, so you've got more clubs in England. But in Scotland I know they haven't got that club, but I think if they made it into 3 leagues and then make the Highland Lowland into League 2 or whatever, I just think that would be better.
So obviously when you first did come up, and obviously you're saying it's not that different, did MD in particular help you set in? I know you said Maitland sort of put you up in Blythewood, but was there any player in particular that sort of helped you settle in?
Yeah, well, my time at Hamilton was probably one of the best dressing rooms like I've been in. Like, honestly, like, I couldn't even think of one player where you go, he's a bad egg him. Or do you know what I mean? I think that's why we were so successful at staying up, because the actual squad was so tight-knitted, do you know what I mean? So it wasn't like a particular one player, but you had your characters like your Daz McKinnon's, your Dougie Imleys, then I got closer, obviously Woodsy, the goalkeeper, and then you've got your little mini firm of like lads that have come through the academy that have always been tight-knit. So obviously I'm still close now. I literally spoke to Sean about an hour ago. Sean, spoke to Scott Martin yesterday, Scott McMahon, Ronan, do you know what I mean? It's just everybody, it's just like a family there, do you know what I mean? And once you buy into it, it's a good place to play your football.
And midway through your first season, Martin Canning, who obviously brought you there, you left.
Yeah.
What was the reaction in the squad with yourself when he was gone? Because the fans had kind of been wanting it for a while now. But what was the reaction in the dressing room when that kind of news came around?
Like, first of all, Kanzo's a really, like, I think fans will know, Fanzo's a top fella, do you know what I mean? He was a really good guy. Obviously, you hear stuff and it's like, be careful what you wish for and that, but you get why people want to actually progress. It gets to a stage where you've been in the league 6 or 7 years and you actually want to go to a Livingston where you're not even bothered about relegation. You should be solidified and fighting for top 6. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Because I'm not soft as well, but the only one thing that surprised me with Kanzo, because you knew it weren't good, do you know what I mean? We're not soft, you knew. I think there was the instant that St Johnstone weren't there. You knew it was, oh no, this is getting a bit ropey now. And the one thing that surprised me, and I don't know if I'm actually right, but the one thing that surprised me was I think we got beat 1-0 by Celtic away. And it was after that game. Whereas we played Aberdeen on the Wednesday and we were terrible. And we got beat 3-1 at home, if I remember. And we were terrible. It was a midweek game.
Midweek game, 3-0 at half time, I think it was.
3-0 at half time, yeah. And that was the one thing that surprised. Obviously, I think it was like, not common knowledge, but it was like his time was coming to an end. But I thought it was, not why then, but that was just a mad game to do it off the back up. We got beat 1-0 by Celtic away. Do you know what I mean? If it was the midweek game, you go, all right, it's enough. But it was just the fact that was the one thing that I always thought struck me as like, it was weird. But I don't know. I think it was one of them where I wouldn't say we got that new manager bouncing, Brian Rice, and effectively that's what kept us up, in my opinion. Brian Rice coming in, we got that. We started picking up results, and we just had that bounce. And that can just happen at a football club where the manager's been a manager for a long time, and the board have trusted him. It just doesn't get stale, but it just gets repetitive. Because the one thing about Kanzo, I always thought Kanzo was really good at setting us up against big teams. But I just felt that he'd carried that mentality into games where he should be going right. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about, where it's St Mirren, St Johnstone, Motherwells. I think we always used to play back three against Celtic, Rangers and things like that away from home. We never used to get battered. I think it was always by one goal. But it was those games where at home, and I think, like, why are we playing like this? Just go on the front foot, you get me? But I say, I've got nothing bad to say about Kanzo. He's a top guy, and I think his time just come to an end at the club, really.
Do you think that was the biggest difference between Canning and Rice, was that change of mentality, at least when Rice first came?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. It was Brian Rice is a really top coach, and I've seen training sessions where I've kind of felt sorry for him because he's asking people to do something, and it's like, it's still the quality of the players, it's not the quality of the coach sometimes, but it's like, no, we should be able to be self-included, all of the people, we should be able to just do that. But it's something like a passion drill or a pattern of play, and it'd be a simple pass out to the fullback and it'd go out to play, and he's losing his head, do you know what I mean? It was like, that's actually not his fault, because what he's doing there is good. That's a good movement or something like that. So I always felt like Brian Rice was actually a very good coach. The one thing about Brian Rice was he was less he cared less about who he was playing against. I think obviously the Old Firm games or the toughest, you know, the top four in the league, he wouldn't care. He'd go, two up top. They've got to defend you too. Do you know what I mean? He'd go, we're getting after them. If we get beat 5-0, I'd rather come out here 5-0 and we've had to go. And that was refreshing. Do you know what I mean? That was the one thing Brian Rice changed. But then obviously that's a downfall in some games where it needs that game management side of it, and that we can't always be gung-ho. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, that was definitely, they were different styles straight away. You could see it.
In your first season, would you say you probably preferred the first part of the season or the second part of the season? Like we've talked about the contrast in Cannon and Rice, as you sort of get played in a more attacking role, would you say, under Rice? So would you say you preferred that aspect of your game in the second half of the season, or did you prefer it in the first half?
I felt under Kanzo, me personally, I felt under Kanzo, it was always a lot of, first of all, under Kanzo, my first experiences of them big stadiums, and I've never seen this, I'm from England, I've never seen this before. Obviously, that's what I remember about my first half of that season, if that makes sense, that overclouds that. My first part of the season, I felt like it was more a defender. I feel like every time you kicked the ball, it was onto my head sort of thing. And I think when Brian Rice came in, it was more like, I don't want you to be just the one that wins the headers, and every day I've got to be on you. It became a useful tool in in both halves of the season, but it was more about like, obviously I think Scott McMahon came on when Brian Rice came in as well, and it was more about overlaps, crosses, more that side, do you know what I mean? So I liked working with Brian Rice. I think Brian Rice was good to work with.
We have to ask about that relegating Dundee. You said you didn't know it was a rival, so what was that game like then at the end of it?
So I remember that. I actually remember that week, to be honest, because obviously it was such a big week, weren't it? Because we were writing it if we got beat, weren't we? And they were still surviving then as well, and it was going to go down to it was the second last game, weren't it?
Pretty much, yeah.
And I remember, I don't know whether it was a Dazzle or a Dougie, and it was like, I always remember by when you're speaking to the lads, I always remember that I don't think Hamilton have got the best record against St Johnstone and Dundee, I think it was, and it was like, no, we don't know do well against Dundee, you know. And then I was thinking, well, why? It's like the fans hate each other, you know. I'm like, what? How do they hate each other? Do you know what I mean? I thought Dundee United, you've seen the two grounds, you're thinking, you can see why they hate each other, but why do Hamilton hate Dundee? That's the thing about Scotland. The fans in Scotland are, in my opinion, uncomparable to England. Sometimes I just think that it's like it's a bit like no pun intended. It's like a religion in Scotland, isn't it? But I think when it goes bad, it can get. In England, it's always more of a level playing field. I think when it's bad in Scotland, it can get really bad. I think it can go over the top sometimes. But I like that, do you know what I mean? I like that edge that Scotland's got to it. That's why I love playing there.
And obviously, your first goal against Hearts, can you remember that pretty well for the first season?
Yeah, I remember it. It's just, people say it was meant to be a first touch, really. I just remember it just come over my head. And, well, the last thing I normally do will be volley from there, just 4-titter. People go, oh, seen him off his line, I've done this. I didn't, just 4-titter. And sometimes, 99 times out of 100 me, that would go over the bar. But luckily, and it ends up being a big goal, that, to be fair. And I remember that little spell because I remember I scored against Livingston 2 weeks later. And I remember looking back and at the end of the season when we stayed up and felt like, because that 1-0 against Hearts, and then we drew 3-0, Livingston scored that. I thought that was 4 points. They were 2 big goals then that I look back on. I remember that little brief spell. And I just always remember thinking they were actually big goals them in the end. So yeah, I obviously felt like I'd done my part in the end. I felt like I'd done a bit for the team.
And into that second season, it was a weird one for everybody. We've talked about it a lot, obviously cut short by COVID, and it was the whole Hearts drama, which was a great entertainment for us. Yeah. What was it like for you players then at the time? Because these are all the same as the fans. You had no idea when football was coming back. You had no idea what's happening the next week.
Yeah, it was strange. First of all, my barber, obviously when I was in Scotland, I had a barber, and obviously when you play everyone once, the first round of fixtures, I don't know why, but I actually called Hearts for going down. I actually said, I don't think that, honestly, the first round of fixtures, I went, they're the worst team I've played in since I've been up here. I don't know why, and my barber always says to say, barber ever. He was like, how'd you call that one in the end, do you know what I mean? I was like, I don't know. But I always thought, when people were going, they'll get out of it, because obviously they was on our tails. I was always confident in the end, to be honest with you. I just thought we had enough. Just because they were hard and they had lads on this money, that money, this money, I always thought we had the better team. Ross County away, the season got cancelled, didn't it?
Yeah, it was meant to be Ross County away on the Saturday.
I'll tell you what, I haven't got a bad memory, have I? No, 2 days earlier, our old sports scientist, Kev, I remember him say, that was the first time I heard about it. He was like, there's a virus from China. He was like, I'm telling you, he spoke to someone at Rangers, he's got a few mates at Rangers or something like that, and he was like, I'm telling you now, the season's getting cut short. And I was like, mate, it's not even on the news, impossible, do you know what I mean? And then when it got postponed, people thought the league shutting down for 3 weeks, and it was like, this isn't just like a little joke, this is going to be, I think, I swear, I remember Ronnie, the chairman, said something like, I don't think we're going to play another game till August. And obviously, they ended up being right in the end, you know what I mean? Yeah. We never knew, because nothing's ever certain, but we always had a good incline that we were going to be okay. I didn't think they were going to do that points per game thing, though. I don't agree with it. I just think they could have just, I think it was easy. I think that was a good time to transition into, add 2 more into the league.
Yeah.
That was I thought at the time, where, because Dundee United deserved to go up 100%, and I think if they had a little playoff with the Championship, I think they could have just added 2 in the league and made the league a bit better. I didn't think they were going to do the points per game thing, though. I thought that was crazy.
I mean, during that season, although it was a bit hectic during the end of it, there was quite a good few fairly big games. What would you say was your sort of biggest game of that season?
I think there was 2 weeks that saved us that season. I think we had a decent Christmas. I think we beat Hearts at home. 1-2-0. Will Collar scored as well.
Collar scored.
And we scored a good goal. Mikel scored a perler. And then
2-1. That was Stendel's first game, I think.
And then me and Moyle scored at Motherwell. So I think that week was important. And I think obviously the last 2 games were important in the end. The Ibrox one and the Kilmarnock at home, I think. And when you look at them, how many times the Hamilton win at Ibrox, how important that result was, and then obviously it was a penalty in the 88th minute, if I remember right. And just, I always thought they were the 2 weeks where, but you deserve that, do you know what I mean? I felt like we deserved that because I felt like there was, that second season, I felt like there was a lot of games where a bit of discipline let us down or a red card, and I felt like it shouldn't have been as bad as it was. We just couldn't get a 3 points, a little run going or we'd be winning, then it'd be a red card and then we'd end up losing or something like that. Or, do you know what I mean? I just felt like we were not unlucky because I felt like discipline killed us a lot that second season. Well, my second season, sorry, so last year.
So obviously in the second season, you get captaincy for a bit. How did that sort of come about? And do you think that was off your own sort of back with the effort you're putting in training, or?
I just think Brian Rice trusted me in the end. Me and Brian Rice have actually got not. People say that he loves me. I used to think, but he always used to be on me the most, and he always used to shout at me the most, which people wouldn't know. Do you know what I mean? But obviously, then he made me captain. That's when I knew. Because sometimes you think, does he actually even like me? But he picks me every week, and then he made me captain. I thought he's obviously doing it from a place where sometimes it manages, because they're on you doesn't mean, it means that they actually care more sometimes, and they actually see that you can develop as a player, and you're not doing things right. What I've learned as I got older is the ones who when you're always messing up in training or messing up in games, and then they don't say nothing. That's when you've got a problem, because they don't really care about you. So yeah, I remember he pulled me in. I think Eastie was going to be out, weren't he? And I remember he pulled me in. And he just said, look, I trust you to lead the lads. I think all the lads respect you. I think you're experienced for your age, and I think that you're exactly what the club needs in that role this time. And obviously, I was young then, do you know what I mean? I was just like, I was really proud, to be honest with you. It was something that took me back a little bit. And that's something that, even the other day, obviously I don't know your opinions are, you're a fan, you're entitled to your opinion. I was personally just gutted for him as a man, because I know what he is, how he's a good man, do you know what I mean? So yeah, as I say, it just came about through, at the end of the day, it just came about through Eastie being injured really, and just took it from there, took it into my stride.
Do you think anything about your sort of the good connection you had with the fans, do you think that maybe had something to play with it as well, the fact you had that such good bond with the fans? Yeah,
I'd probably say it helps, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean? I think if you get a vibe, don't you, when you're at a football club and you know fans like you or they don't, and I felt like I had a really good connection with the Hamilton fans, and I felt like obviously at the end of the day, because obviously when you're playing, you know which players kind of get a bit more abuse than others, or get a bit more stick, and obviously I felt like Hamilton fans were always really good with me, even when I had bad games, and so I'd say if you're a player that was, you know, constantly always getting a bit of stick or abuse, I think managers aren't soft either, they know as well. So I just don't know. I just think that if you were going to appoint someone, why would you not appoint someone that's just another little thing. I don't think that was the reason, but I think obviously goes hand in hand, doesn't it?
So obviously that was only your second season with Accies. How do you think the sort of connection became so apparent so quick, and you did have that bond? Because obviously you were on the Facebook groups and everything. You had me in your DMs every week. So.
I had you in my DMs and you were bladdered every week, didn't I? You know what? I like when fans, like, are passionate. Do you know what I mean? I just always, why not? Do you know what I mean? Like, listen, it gets to a point where you can't be too over thingy because I know but I'm not soft either. You can't expect to be thingy on social media and take all the plaudits, but then when you have a bad game, you can't expect it to not be called shit. Why not? But then you're entitled to it. Oh, it's only when it gets personal with me when I think it's not needed. Do you know what I mean? But if you're like getting told, "Oh, you were excellent today," and you're sitting there and you're reading it in, then when you have a bad game, you were shit today. What's wrong with it? It's just obviously you've got to have that mentality where, which I don't think not a lot, but I don't think some players don't have. I just think players like one side of it and they can't take the other sides of it. Where, and I think at the end of the day, I think people see that the one thing I always feel like I gave was 100%. Do you know what I mean? That's what, even if I was having a shit game, I felt like I always even just had a fucking run or just try and tackle, just try and do something to. Even when because obviously when you play, you know when you're having a bad game, but you can always still help your mate out at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? I've never been one to go in my pocket and in my shell and go, "Oh well, I'm having a bad game. That's me. See you later." I can still help other people sometimes, even when you're having a bad game. So I think Hamilton fans have always, before I joined, I think they always liked people. They were always well drilled, organised, solid. Daz McKinnon, Doug Imley's hard workers, and I think I've kind of fitted into that. Not that mould of players, but just in that, you know, how I operate as a player.
We have to ask you about leaving Hamilton because it was a big topic of conversation with us on the podcast and amongst fans themselves. There were some fans who saw that move to Kilmarnock, and I hope you don't take offence to this, but
I don't mind because I'm not soft. Do you know what I mean?
So some fans saw that move to Kilmarnock almost as a sidestep rather than going up and furthering your career, because what we've always said in the podcast is when someone come in and does well at Accies and they go in to a bigger club and do better, we applaud them, we say best of luck to you.
Yeah.
What was that like for you in that situation? Because there was a lot of rumours floating about going down to England. There was contract rumours floating around, so you stay hushed about it all.
Yeah, I had to listen. That's the one thing that fans don't get. I'm not going to go on there and tell you like everything that's went on. Do you know what I mean? The reality of it is, in all honesty, is the fact that I think it's sometimes it's different for me because not me, but other players as well. Because if people don't forget, I'm not a showman where I'm 15 minutes away.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I'm living away from home for my career, if that makes sense. I'll be honest with you, what I got to was it was COVID. COVID happened. Obviously, that happened in March. The one thing I didn't like about it all, but I still kept my mouth shut through respect, was we wanted to move, because there was a group of us really, weren't there? Me, Mikel, let's be honest, Gogger. I think that's what people, reading between the lines, that's the three that people wanted to sign up.
Yep.
The one thing I didn't like was, and I've got utmost respect for everyone there, the one thing I didn't like was that we wanted to move down south. I've never said that. Do you know what I mean? At the end of the day, Mikel moved down south. Gogger went to Hibs, I went to Kilmarnock, so that kind of speaks for that self. Do you know what I mean? I've always loved living in Scotland. I used to live 5 minutes away from Hamilton. I love living in Scotland. If I could move Scotland to Liverpool on the way because I actually love the place, do you know what I mean? So I was more than happy living in Scotland. My mum and dad used to come up. They used to love to go in the games. And it's not like it's the end of the world. It's not like I'm living 7 hours away. It's not like it's a proper life change. I'm 2.5 hours away from home when I live in Hamilton. Obviously, the other thing, as I say, going back to it, I'm living away from home for my career. It's not just where it can be comfy for me, if that makes sense, because at the end of the day, it's a ruthless business. And obviously, I got offered the contract that at the end of the day, I wasn't happy with. I get that there was cuts through COVID, but the certain thing I didn't want to take was a cut. And that's the God's honest truth. And the other lads are the same, really. So the one thing that Hamilton fans are lucky with is they've got a club that'll never go bust. So you can go on about ambition and this and that, and Al Maitland and Ronnie do an incredible job and the top people. But you've just got to break it down into your singular self at the end of the day. And I felt after that year, or even getting made captain, I was like, why would I take this much of a cut? In my opinion, when I know there's other things happening as well. But if they came with the same contract, I think it was signed. It wasn't we're talking £20. Do you know what I mean? I'm not just let's just leave it at that. And that's all because I respect them too much. And at the end of the day, that's what happens. And obviously with the Kilmarnock thing, I knew they were in the background, but it wasn't entertaining it. And then I'll be honest with you, as a football player, it's panic stations. I think I could have held out a lot weeks down the line and listened to other clubs and listened to them, and we're waiting for them. And the one mistake I made about Kilmarnock was I got offered the deal and I was like, there, take it. Because at the end of the day, that's my job. My job is a scary job, and you can quickly get forgotten about in football, and you can quickly have your career, not just by one manager, you can get took away from you like that. I felt like I got offered a very good deal by Kilmarnock, and I felt like I needed to take it.
Do you think because you had that sort of connection with the fans, you were that close that you were probably the one that had the biggest sort of reaction out of the three that sort of left?
But if you knew,
if you understood exactly,
if you knew what I've been offered, what other players have been offered, you'll know why we're not building. If that makes sense,
yeah,
you'll know why you'll know why we're leaving. Do you know what I mean? And that's just the God's honest truth of it. At the end of the day, if you got offered X amount of money to go work here, or you got offered 30% more to go in another job, where are you going? At the end of the day, and that's just the God's honest truth of it. Especially, and what we didn't know at the time, it has a bit the uncertainty of COVID.
Yeah,
and that's just being honest from a player I was out of contract, and that's just speaking from a player that was out of contract with that time. It was a hard time for any player, really. I think it was a hard time for any football club. At the end of the day, I think Hamilton would have liked to have offered me more, but they had to cut the cloth, and that's fine. I've got no qualms about him. I'm not saying they're bad people. I'm just saying that just didn't work for me, in my personal opinion. And that was all it was, really.
Before we go in and ask about Kelly in the next game, we do these two segments with players called teammates, and then in the know, similar to what you see on Sky. So teammates ask you some quick fire questions about your Accies guys. So Brandon's going to fire them at you before we talk about.
Just before we start this, when we asked Sean what his one word for you was, it was snake. So
yeah, I know.
It's just to keep your heads up in that.
So when I moved to Killy, I still went to the Starbucks in Hamilton with the lads for every Friday, and I just every time I walked in there, it's a snake. You know what I mean? Oh, mate. Scott Martin, honestly, they punished me for that move as well, by the way. Don't worry about that.
Longest in the shower.
What are we going off, by the way? How long it takes
you can make your own decision on that.
Something's sticking out of my head as well. So you just know. Gary Woods.
Best trainer.
First year, Daz McKinnon. No, best trainer, sorry, Rax.
Aye.
Toss up between Rax and McKell.
Worst trainer.
Delft Tishiembe, that was me.
Fastest.
Rax.
Most skillful.
McKell.
Funniest.
Toss up between Sean and Scott Martin, unfortunately.
Worst dress sense.
Martin's short off. Wow.
Right. Describe each of these players in one word. Dougie Emery.
What's this guy got Dougie Emery in one word? Firm.
Dazzler.
Rand Benz.
Lewis Smith.
Quiet.
David Moyo.
Head on a stick.
Gogic.
So many things I could say about Gogic. Casey. Yes.
Tishembe.
Horrendous.
And Sean won.
Sean won. One word. I've got a few words. Sean wants. Can't say one.
I mean, you can give us a wee description if you want.
Wee description, right? If you ever clock with Sean, next time you're at the game, clock it. He's got the biggest biceps you've ever seen, and he's got no legs. He's got no calf. Sean's I reckon about 50 kilograms of him is his top half, and then about 5 kilograms is his bottom half. Got the skinniest legs and calves you've ever seen in your life.
There we go. And I think I know the answer to this, judging by your other answers. But worst player?
Do you know what? I'd throw him in there, but I wouldn't say worst player. But you know, the one that surprised me, because obviously when you're in foot, we knew how much money he was on. fuck me, he was bad. Remember Freddie Brewstad, was it?
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, mate, you won't believe how much money that fella was on, you know.
Was he on a good bit? Because it was a Danish club. He was on loan, wasn't it?
He was on loan.
It wasn't a bit, it was serious. Celtic Rangers money, what he was on. Seriously. So when he came in, you looked at his record. Do you know, when everybody's the same, you come in, you find out who they are. One of the lads Google him, do you know what I mean? And you go, oh. Sometimes you make a decision of, fucking not going to do us, or he's all right. He came in on deadline day. And I remember thinking, he was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was his manager. That was who he was, manager. And he used to start him all the time, didn't he? And he was flying under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. So when we were looking at his thing, it was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's main man. This was only a year ago, because Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was the Molde manager. He scored so many goals, and then it looked like Ole left, went to Man United, and then from there he didn't play, so the new manager weren't having him. But you're thinking, oh no, must be good. And then you hear what he's on, and you're thinking, I know Hamilton weren't paying even half, or couldn't even pay a tenth of that. But you're thinking, this lad must be good. And I remember he trained with us the first day, and he was like 6'4". He was so strong, powerful, and he was on bomb. He was finishing was unbelievable. And we're like, oh my god, you just think like, we're flying here with them up front, and then how wrong did we get it, mate? But you know what? It was weird with Freddie, because he had everything. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you wanted the perfect footballer's body and even athleticism, that was it. And he was just, he didn't take to, I think Martin Cannon, what killed him, I think it was Martin Cannon, or I don't know if it's Brian, I think it was Martin Cannon though. He played Aberdeen away, and if I remember right, he took him off at half time, and then that was it. Oh my god, that kid Ed was just... But I wouldn't say he was the worst player, but I'd say just because I've got other people in my mind, but I don't want to out it on here, because more like with a few of them. But he was the biggest disappointment, because he had everything. But I don't speak to Delph, so you can say Delph. I don't know where he is now. That guy was... He's
in Faroe Islands.
What a guy though, but wow.
He's playing in the Faroe Islands
every day. He used to do a Cruyff 5 yards out. It used to be a running joke where he'd be 5 yards out to his goal. He used to try and do a Cruyff, and you're like, and you're insane, he used to score, and it's like, what goal should that lad's head sometimes? But he was the same. Do you remember he played against his debut was against Motherwell? He came on the last 10 minutes, and I thought, this lad's an animal. I remember he had a really good debut. He was the same way sometimes. It's a long season, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Best moment. So we'll come to matches soon, but what was your best moment at Hamilton?
I remember sitting on the bench at Ibrox after the game when we beat them, and I heard like it wasn't, obviously I know they've done it before, but it's rare, isn't it? And I remember sitting there thinking like, oh hell, I've just captained like that. I've just done that. Do you know what I mean? And I remember that's one that is my proudest moment of football, easily. That game, just like doing it with my mates as well, next to Sean, one next to me, and all the lads after the game, and all their Celtic fans, Scott Martin, and that game, easy. That's easy.
Worst moment?
It's a hard one, that, because there wasn't many lows, you know. There was lows, but there wasn't like, we had that sort of group where it was like, we always kicked on to the next one. Just trying to think of a lower Hamilton. I think we got battered 5-0 Hibs away. That was a baddie. And I remember I was gutted that we got beat by Motherwell at home. I hated that. And I went off that game with my ankle. I went off with that ankle injury, and I really got injured at Hamilton in that first year. I remember I hated that game.
And what was your best match?
I've always done well. I always did well against Kilmarnock and Hearts at Hamilton. So probably one of them. I think there was a Hearts away where I thought I had a good game. I used to love playing at Hearts as well. And I remember there was one of my first year against Kilmarnock, against Jordan Jones and Taylor. And then I think one of my first Celtic games away from home against Tony Sinclair as well. Say one of them three, but obviously nothing really sticks out in my head, if that makes sense.
Do any matches stick out for being poor?
Yeah. I remember St Johnstone away. For all the wingers I always used to play against in Scotland, I used to hate playing against Waterspoon. I think he's one of the most underrated, because obviously just because I've never felt like I've had a real good game against him. I used to hate playing St Johnstone. I used to hate playing against Waterspoon. For all the good wingers I've played against up there, and obviously Waterspoon is a good winger, but he wouldn't be put in that bracket, would he? It's always the old firm, Martin Boyle, etc. But always hated playing against Waterspoon.
Have you got any sort of funny stories that you're willing to share for your time at Hampton? Maybe putting some people in the shit as well.
No, I remember we used to have. It's not hilarious, like, but the one thing that, like, I just remember just thinking about that, we always used to have a laugh over, because we always used to have like we obviously, when you get fines, and we used to have a roulette wheel, and there used to be like forfeits or money orientated. And obviously, I remember Killer Matt Kilgallen. What a guy, mate! He's a legend of a person. And we always used to say, obviously, Kil's had a good career. He's got a few quid. And there used to be a fine called the 50 quid, and it was called the Kilgallen. But I'm just trying to think of like one that I could just say, because sometimes they're not really funny when you can't say them. There's one in mind, but I definitely can't say it. No, I can't say it. I can't say it. Go with that.
So to look ahead to this weekend's match, don't think MD saw Kelly as relegation contenders last season. It was not something that I think any fan would have predicted. What do you think went wrong for Kilmarnock last season, for you guys last season? What do you think it was that stuck you in that rut?
The dressing room.
Not playing you, that's probably one of them.
Well, nah. Might have been a few points further adrift. The dressing room. When every team, when a team, I think obviously that it's quite clear what the new manager's done with how many outs he had at the end of the season. Obviously, like, I don't want to go too much into it and this and that, but in a nutshell, it weren't a team really. Did Kilmarnock have a squad that should have went down last year? Not a chance. Do you know what I mean? The quality was nowhere near should have been down there, but the dressing room it weren't a team. That's probably the easiest, just straight away, that you can think of.
So do you think that's why they've had such an overhaul on the players that they've brought in, because obviously they really need to go up this season? So do you think the players
I think they know. I think the new manager knew. Well, I think obviously I went back there and done pre-season with them, and I was in contact. There's only 4 of us. There's only 3 of us in contact, and me, Al Powell went back, and I think Berkey got a new contract. So there ended up 6 of us from 24. Yeah. So if that doesn't say something, I think obviously with the Kilmarnock fan base, I think they knew as well. If that makes sense. It was just whole place was just off. If that makes sense. Being at Hamilton, if you ask me, did Hamilton have better players? The both times we stayed up in my 2 years, honestly, I think that Kilmarnock was better. Yeah. But Hamilton was a team. Do you know what I mean? And when you're in a relegation fight, you need to be a team. Whether you like it or not, doesn't matter if you're this, you're that. If you're a team, you can go a long way in football.
And do you see Kelly bouncing straight back up? They're one of the favourites, obviously, for this league.
If you want my honest opinion, I think they're going to go straight back up. I think the squad they've built is too strong. But you can have all the players you want, but the dressing room they built this year is a really good dressing room. It's full of good lads as well. So I think they've got that team spirit, team ethic, etc. Because obviously I've done 3 or 4 weeks with them, and I know a lot of the lads are top lads. So I think they've got that side of it boxed off, and I think they've signed some real good players for that level. The problem is that league, it's unpredictable, isn't it? You go to Queen of the South and Morton away, it's a hard game. No matter if you're Celtic or Rangers, it's a hard game. It doesn't matter if you've got the best players on the pitch, them sort of games, does it? I'm not saying they won't win that, I just don't know how that's going to pan out.
To look at Accies, we've not had a great start, obviously. There was a bit of a mental first game against Wraith Rovers. We've lost our second. We've now not got a manager, so people will be looking at Brian Easton, David Templeton, the kind of leaders in the dressing room. What do you think will be the message from those guys with the current situation we're in?
First of all, at the start of the season, my prediction will be Hamilton finish second. So I'm still going to stick by that, actually. I think Hamilton, the injuries have killed them. Mm-hmm. That was even last season. I think that killed Brian Rice, the injuries. But also at the same time, if there's that many, some questions have got to be asked, if that makes sense.
Yep.
But I know a few injuries where somebody slipped on the driveway You know, but I know like that somebody slipped in a shower, that sort of thing, and that's not training methods. But obviously there's other things that you're like, if you've got 10 lads injured, something's not right somewhere, surely. I think if they keep a full fit squad, I think they'll be right up there. First of all, I know all the lads really respect Boozy, and I really respect Boozy. I think Boozy actually is a very good coach. Sometimes he doesn't get to show it, Boozy, because managers he's had have been so hands-on that he doesn't really get to show. I don't know whether Boozy would want the job. I think it's different, isn't it? If you look good in the next 2 or 3 games or whatever, but it depends how quickly they appoint. I think the message will be, I think you'll see a different style of play Saturday. I know that's what's expected to come Saturday, so I think hopefully you're going to see a different style of play. So I think it's one of them where shackles are off sort of thing, and don't want to give anything away because it's private conversations, but I just think you might see something a bit different that you might like. I don't know how if that makes you better or not, though. Do you know what I mean? I'm just saying the tactics are different. So, as I say, it could work, it could not. But I think, obviously, the good thing they've got on the side is Hamilton, the team are prepared, because I know all them lads in that changing room, well, I know 80% of them, they're well prepared for this sort of thing because they've got that team spirit. I think they're prepared. Sometimes people go on about the new manager. When Brian Rice came in, that was because we just had a different style of play. The team ethic was already there. We went on a good run with Brian Rice as soon as he came in. Mm-hmm. That new manager shout's a bit of a myth, in my opinion. It's more like how lads feel, and they feel like they were getting treated like this. It's just about like this manager came in and went. Do you know what I mean? It's an interesting game, really. If you ask me at the start of the season, I think Killy has have too much, but I actually don't know Saturday. I actually don't know. I can see it being I'm going to go 1-1 till the 80th minute, and I think someone nicks in the last 10. That's what I'm going to go for Saturday. If someone wins 5-0, I look like an idiot.
And sort of touch back on sort of certain players who might stand out this season for Accies. Who do you, first of all, think will be the standouts if you had to pick a few?
Lewis Smith.
We were going to mention him because obviously you mentioned. I think you told me that he was crying after his debut.
He was. I swear to God, he was crying after his debut.
Rubbish that he was. When we told him that, he screwed his face up. He wasn't too best pleased with you when he told me that.
I think if Smithy, obviously, I think at the end of the season, you were a few points. Not a lot, but you were a point to drift to Killy Ross County, weren't you? And I think if Lewis Smith was in the team the whole season, I think it would have been a lot closer anyway. Smithy's just got that thing that no one else in that team's got, if that makes sense. So I think if you keep Smithy fit, I think Smithy's on his days far too good to play at that level, personally. You're going to need Sean Want, not just saying that. It pains me to say that, but you're going to need someone that knows what the club's about. You're going to need a Scott Martin to do your legwork, and you're going to need the match winners, which I think Smithy and Temps can provide. I think you need a striker.
Yep.
I think he's crying out for a striker. This is just me being honest, by the way. I think he's crying out for a striker. I think if you get a good striker in, I think your season will... Listen, it's only 2 games in, so you can't say that you're doing... It's 2 games in at the end of the day, but I think a striker could really make that team tick.
To touch back on sort of probably only our podcast is sort of love child, Jamie Hamilton. Obviously, you watched him sort of probably grow into getting into the first team. Did you always know he was going to be sort of a certain calibre? Did he always look in training that he was going to be?
Jamie Hamilton's one of the best, not centre half, one of the best players I've seen on the ball. It's a big season for him because at the end of the day, he's well tipped to move on. Do you know what I mean? I think if he moved on, I don't think Hamilton fans could be like, why has he gone there? Because I think it's not going to be a Kilmarnock. I think it's going to be a big. I think it's going to be a top big club. Do you know what I mean? I think the money that's getting touted about, and obviously when you're involved, you know, and you're there. I think the ball side of it's easy for him. Do you know what I mean? That league's not ball side sometimes. Do you know what I mean? Mm. So it could either suit him because he could look. He's too good for that level anyway. But he can either suit him in the sense of he literally looks like he's head and shoulders above everyone because how good he is on the ball. But you forget how young he is. So you always get kind of out, Jamie. I mean, you just forget how young he is. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, he had that spell when he first came in the team, and it was hard because I was captain at that time as well, and I remember coming off a heart, and the lad was upset when he got sent off, and I didn't know that he'd been sent off. And it became obviously I think obviously the social media came into it for Jamie as well, where it was like the not again, because he had a few instances where he got sent off, and but he was learning his trade, do you know what I mean? And it was a relegation fight at a hard place to learn your trade. At the end of the day, he hasn't came into a team that's St Johnston and the 5th, 6th and everything. Oh, this kid, he's looking all right. He's came into like a defence in a relegation battle. So I think with Jamie, it's just about getting that. I think Jamie just needs to learn that all that a la centre-half way of football as well. Because that nice side of football, which is obviously the under-23 and the Premier League route, that's done. Do you know what I mean? He's far better on the ball than he's easily the best centre-half on the ball I've played with. Do you know what I mean? The way he dribbles out and the way he can pass the ball is just different. But it's the other side. But in that league, our striker isn't going to be a nice fella.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If you get what I'm saying, so if he gets that defending side and that, you know, that proper centre half, there's no doubt where he's going to go in his career. Do you know what I mean? So that's what I'd say about Jamie. And
finally, the final thing we'll ask you, we know you've said it will be 1 each till the 80th, and somebody will nick it, but we've got a league table for predictions this season. Every guest we've had on, we've asked them to nail down a score prediction, so I'm going to ask you as well. You have to pick. What's your final score?
2-1. Killy score first, though.
Aaron, thank you very much, man. This has been brilliant, man. We appreciate it a lot.
Top lads, it's been a pleasure. Nice to hear from you again.
So, guys, before Brian Rice left, one of the things he brought up was they had a bounce match against Partick Thistle. We now know that Accies won that 2-1 with Templeton and Mullen being the scorers, I believe was the rumour. Do we pay any attention to bounce games? Is bounce games something, especially kind of after the season started, something that we pay too much attention to?
I mean, it's a bit more refreshing actually seeing us win a game, to be honest with you, especially when the results were apparently meant to be like for the bounce matches prior to the season started. So no, I think it is good to see that we did win the game against someone that's in a league. And it's under the two that's going to be in charge next week, so we don't know if they've maybe played their type of style compared to Rice's. So no, it's you don't pay that much attention to it because it is only a bounce match, but it's actually a bit refreshing to see us win a game, so hopefully we can take that into Saturday.
And one of the fallouts, David, of Brian Rice leaving was the transfer business. We don't know what's happening with it. We don't know if they've put possible deals on hold because they don't know what the new manager, whoever that may be, is gonna want. We're still desperately needing a striker. Aaron McGowan agrees with us. So where do you think Accies are right now? Have we put that business on hold, or is it just kind of carry on from what Brian Rice's targets were?
I don't know. I mean, you got to remember Brian Rice was a head coach, so I think all the kind of business was taken care of by the board and Alan Maitland and the chairman. So I think that the deals will definitely be on hold because any maybe player or club selling a player or loaning a player will want to know where they're going to and who they're going to. But I don't know. I'd like to think it's not going to jeopardise a deal. I'll definitely have it on hold, but I don't think Brian Rice had too much to deal with those anyway. I think the board would give him the targets of who they're looking at. He'd obviously have the final say, but I think hopefully it doesn't scupper any deal.
Brandon, and it was refreshing to hear Aaron McGowan actually agree with the Accies fans, wasn't it, and say that you guys have got a good squad, you just fucking need a striker. It's refreshing to see that a professional footballer can see that as well. It's not just us going crazy.
No, definitely. And if he practically said everything that we've been saying recently, bar the sort of right back situation, that we're only a proper striker away from really competing, and that's exactly what he said. He says obviously realistically you're not going to go and sign a 20-goal striker, but no many teams are. You're extremely lucky if you're managing to find a 20-goal striker with the sort of budget etc that us in the bottom half teams in the Scottish Premier League have got. So it was nice to hear him say that, and you think that hopefully the board understand that as well, because we're not a million miles away from it. I know David gets slaughtered on Twitter of some wee Kelly guy. I hope that his words come back to him on that one. But I genuinely don't think we're that far away. Hopefully with a new manager coming in, he implements his ideas and changes the sort of style up a bit, and we're not hurt by injuries, and we do have a real chance, but we really need a striker. And like David's saying, it will be slightly put on hold, because even as McGowan said, his main decision maker was after talking to the manager. So the player themselves, the striker, all very well and good, might want to come to us, but they still need to talk to the manager. They need to talk to. They're not just going to just sign for the club, just because they've got a pay packet in front of them. This is what you're going to get. They need to sort of kind of be sold the club, and when you've not got a manager in place, it's very hard to do that unless the player is really desperate. And you'd hope we're not just signing a striker that's really desperate for the sake of it. Like we kept saying, we really need a striker of a certain level and not just buying them for the sake of it.
And on the topic of a manager, there's been a lot of rumours floating around, a few articles over the last 2 days that were apparently very strongly linked with Stuart Taylor, obviously former player, former assistant at Accies, currently part of the Ross County coaching team. He's been very strongly linked with a role here. What do you guys make of that? It wasn't a name that we brought up in our video talking about Rice. David, what do you make of that now?
I think the fact that there's interviews with George Cairns talking about it, I think that all but confirms that's what's happening. We know how precious the club are with their information. That wouldn't have been authorised unless it had something to it. I think that it's positive. I mean, it's a name, it's a guy we all like. There's a lot of... I don't personally remember too much of his coaching at Accies first time around, but I've seen a lot of tweets about people saying that they've heard the more positive side of things were due to him when he was assistant to Billy Reid. I think you've got to look at it with plain eyes, though. I mean, it's almost an identical appointment to Brian Rice, a guy that we say to ourselves, listen, it's good coaching calibre, he's good experience, should be ready to kick on. This is all the shit we were saying when Brian Rice got appointed. I think we've all got the goggles on now where we were more focused on what it could have been and what we were convincing ourselves it was going to be. So we will be a bit happy that it's anything but it's still not the kind of move that we were saying just a few days ago we have to make. It does seem like we're reluctant to pay a manager. We'll create a manager and bring someone through as a manager, but we won't actually get someone who's tried and tested. And I think that's just one of those things that this is proving to me that we're going to have to live with it. Because like I said, the last manager we brought in was Billy Reid, and even that was because he was part of the backroom staff that came over for Clyde anyway. So when have we actually ever went and got a tried and tested manager? And I don't think we ever will. It'll always be about hoping for the best with a new opportunity. So I'm positive and I'm open-minded to see how he does, but it's very similar to before.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the same mindset as you, David. I think I'm positive at the moment for it. It's nice to see it's not another internal appointment, but on paper, not really successful at Limerick and Ireland, assistant manager at big clubs, and you can't take that away from him. But I think it was successive relegations with Paul Lambert. It's on paper, it's not super exciting for me, and it's hard to say because given he's got a history with Accies, I'm naturally happy about it. But as you said, it's very much a carbon copy of the same stuff we got with Brian Rice. Brandon, what about you? How are you feeling with that link?
I mean, you have pretty much touched everything I would have to say about it. I think what the fans were crying out for was there was an opportunity given the board here to go out and give us a new face, something different, something we've not seen before. And it's very similar. It's someone they know, and they just seem extremely reluctant to go out with their comfort zone, which I think that's what the fans were crying out for. But with the fact that the goggles were on with making sure that as long as it wasn't sort of boozy or someone internally. That's why the fans are pretty happy about it. Don't get me wrong, that was a really good period of me growing up being an Accies fan when Stan was there, and that was when I proper sort of started getting right into Accies. It was that sort of period, and when I can remember anyway. So no, it's a decent appointment. I'm pretty happy with it. It could have been a lot worse, and I willing to give him the time of day clearly, and I think he's a decent person as well. So hopefully he brings in new ideas that we've not had before. He changes things up a bit, and yeah, his style of play is attractive to watch. That's, I think, what we all want to see, just an attractive style of play, and I'm sure he'll keep to the ethos of the club as well, or else they wouldn't have brought him in. So no, if we do bring him in, that is, then yeah, we'll see what happens, but we'd only wish him the best to start off with.
Absolutely. One thing we know for certain is it will be Boozy and Cairns taking the team on Saturday. Aaron McGowan hinted to us in our interview there that we could possibly see something different tactically from them. What do you guys think that could be? Do you think that could be formation, shape? Do you think it's a total change of mindset? I can tell you that the way I read into that is Ryan Rice has been criticised for very defensive style of football. If he's saying it's totally different from that, the only thing I can imagine is he's going to go gung-ho. That's how I read it. On the front foot, from the off, looking to attack at every opportunity. That's the way I understood it. What about you guys? What do you read into that?
I agree. I think that's definitely the impression you get. You're not going to say something like, "Listen, you guys are going to be surprised, and it's going to be defensive and cautious." It's going to be. I think it's.
Be surprised.
This is true. I've been like two goalkeepers or something. I think it's going to be. Listen, it's the only game these guys are going to be in charge. They might want to set an impression for the new manager if he's going to be there or appointed before there. I think they are going to go for it. I think they'll be looking to see how we can attack, how we can kind of throw caution to the wind. And listen, I hope it pays off because, listen, Kelly have got 2 wins for 2, but they've not been convincing. I watched their United game. The fact that they got a last-minute winner against Queen of the South tells you everything you need to know about that game. They've got a much better start than us, but I think it's there for the taking, so I hope it works.
Personally, I think they'll sort of go for it. I think we'll see a change in formation. I don't think that McGowan would have said that if it wasn't going to be, it wouldn't have came up in conversation, if it wasn't going to be sort of a wholesale change as such. So I think we'll definitely will see a lot of adaptations and something we've perhaps not seen before in recent years. When you watch Boozy, he seems very notebook orientated with his pad and sort of showing diagrams and stuff like that. So that makes me think that he's got a mind there that's ready to sort of explore hundreds of different ideas.
What Aaron McGowan said in an interview was he has a really good coach, he just doesn't get the opportunity to show it. So this could be the opportunity to showcase something he's been working on or tried to implement.
He's tried to implement it and he's just never been given the opportunity to. So no, as David says, Kilmarnock have not exactly been phenomenal attacking wise. They've not got the best players, and defensive wise they've not got the best players either. I'm not saying we do, but they'll not get players that really stand out apart from Chris Burke. So hopefully we see a change in we're better than our past 2 games, because if we're anywhere near the standard we were both the first half of Rafe and the full game against Morton, then we're going to be with 3 games in the league and already without any wins at all.
It's obviously working. I mean, the fact that AJ has said this and he's heard this from someone probably within the club, you wouldn't be going saying to a mate, "Listen, wait to see what's happening with us." So obviously, whatever if it's been implemented, is working and it's going to be effective, because on paper we've got some good forward players. So maybe that is the case. So listen, you wouldn't be saying that otherwise. So this could be exciting, and this might be something the manager takes over.
I mean, we beat Partick Thistle 2-1. Partick are one of the teams in the league that I genuinely think are to look out for. The two apparent goal scorers, Mullen and Templeton, probably some of the most one of the most crucial players for us this season, both attacking players. So he's not going to bring that up unless we're going to see something that definitely does make us go at, unless now we go there and it's exactly carbon copy of Brian Rice and AJ is just pulling our pisser. But
David, I know you've got your notepad out. I know you've got a lineup kind of written out. What changes would you like to see happen? Any formation changes? Any players brought in?
The lineup I've went with. It would be Fulton in goals. I'd go with a back four. Now, the right back position is one I'm not certain about. Probably stupid to do this, but I'd be having Scott McMahon at left back, probably Kieran McDonald at right back. He's been there a couple of times already. I mean, he scored 2 goals at Wraith in that position. One and Hamilton in the centre halves. Spence and Vartanen in the middle, but I think personally I would rather see Regan Mimno there. Spence was disappointing. Like you say, I think when we were talking about him coming in, it was, listen, he'll go under the radar, but for me, it was far too basic. It was just sideward passes. That's not going under the radar, you know what I mean? That's just playing it too safe. And then I would have Temps, Smith, Mullen and Ryan. Now, the way that I kind of thought would maybe be a front three of Smith, Mullen and Ryan, and maybe a free roll for Temps behind them. Or you could have 2 wide players and maybe Ryan and Mullen up top, or we've seen even Lewis Smith play up there. But the fact that even the name of those 4 forward players is, I think it's more promising than something we've had for the majority of our time in the SPL. So that's what I would go with. And like I say, if that's kind of the gun-ho that we're looking at, I'd say that team looks pretty like that as well.
All right, Brandon, what do you think of that? Would you make any changes to that? What about yourself?
I think that team makes sense for the sort of ideology that we're kind of hinting at AJ said, because you can't really get any more attacking than that. That really is like a 4-2-4. I'd be a bit wary playing that against Kelly, if I'm being honest with you. I think some of the lower end of the table teams, then definitely play that, go for it. You've got nothing to lose. But I suppose it is early in the league, but without a win, so I'm a bit wary of going that attacking. But if we were to go that attacking, I genuinely wouldn't have any qualms with it, because it's going gung ho, and what's the worst could happen? We get pumped 5-0. But
I mean, I'm seeing this at the moment as a bit of a free game. I know it's not in terms of the league and needing points, but I see this as a game where let them try something different. Let them try something, mix it up a wee bit, and try something new. I
get that. I totally do get that, and I know it is only the 3rd game into the season. But if we realistically do want to be going for promotion, let's say we try something and it's a disaster, we're 8 points behind Kelly.
Oh, yeah,
I know, but I mean, how do we know that this isn't the style of play they used against Thistle? I mean, we're all guilty of looking into bounce game results. We all know it. Every time we all say to ourselves, I know it's a bounce game, but we all know we get disappointed when we see a defeat. End of the day is, for all we know, I mean, the reason we had this bounce game is because neither us or Thistle were playing in the League Cup. So you probably find that Thistle probably paid majority of first teamers to keep people fresh. So we could have went and played this gun-ho style, and it's worked against a team that have won both their league games. So, like I say, maybe look at it a bit more positively. It might be this style they're implementing, and it might be working. So let's hope it does. You know what I mean? Because it can only be a good thing to go in. Like Brandon said, it's a free game, but I'd rather go into this new era with a win, because you don't want to be, like I say, 3 games in, but you don't want to be without a win in your first 3.
Yeah, absolutely. And as always, we'll get our score predictions for our league table. Nobody nobody, none of the fans got any points. Everybody predicted an Accies win, and we know how that went. So what about this time round? Brandon, I'll come to you first. Score prediction, Accies versus Kelly.
2 each.
2 each. Okay, David?
I was going 1 each.
Okay, I'm gonna be the confident one. I'm gonna say 1-0 Hamilton. I'm gonna say we'll get it and we'll keep a clean sheet. Which is rare. As always, let us know in the comments, let us know on social media your predictions, and we'll get involved in our league table. Thank you very much for watching our preview. Thank you to Adam McGowan for joining us. It was great to have him on. And as always, we'll see you after the game.